Sinner naturally is a pinpoint stance server, and he naturally has a very lengthy serve. So in other words, he serves with a lag, and it's not only a lag, it's a lag with a pause, similar to Ivo Karlovic. So Sinner's natural serve is the following. He will toss the ball up first, the racket will lag behind, and there will be a pause when the racket lags behind. In other words, it's not a continuous motion where the racket goes up, it hits this spot right here and then pauses. Now, Sinner does something that's unorthodox. He pulls his back foot up early. So he will begin to pull the back foot in and then start taking his racket up. Naturally, what you see from some of the greatest pinpoint servers in the history of the game, for example, John Isner, is that the back foot pulls up simultaneously with the take-up portion of the serve, so that when that back foot is planted on the ground, the racket is in a trophy position or trophy phase, and now the entire system can be unloaded simultaneously. So the advantage of a pinpoint stance is that as we bring that back foot in, we can take some of the momentum of that movement and apply it into the forward momentum of the serve. However, Sinner breaks the momentum. Why? Because he pulls the back foot in early. So in other words, he will get into his lag position, pull the back foot in, and then go up with the racket and then transfer the weight forward. Now you're probably thinking, Nick, what are you saying? Does Sinner have a serve flaw? He doesn't, because there's another guy who I consider the greatest server in the history of tennis who serves exactly like Sinner does, and that's Ivo Karlovic. So if you look at Ivo Karlovic's serve, he has a similar lag where the racket pauses back here. And this is all accompanied by a toss that's higher. You do need a higher toss to be able to pause the racket down here. So Karlovic's serve looks the following way. He lags the racket behind, there's a pause, he pulls the back foot in, and then the racket starts going up towards the trophy phase. So this type of timing of the pinpoint stance is not wrong by any means, but it does kind of defeat the purpose of a pinpoint stance serve, because what you want to do, and what, for example, currently Medvedev, Hurkacz, Ben Shelton, or Nick Kyrgios do, who are considered the top 5 servers in the world of players that are currently on tour, they bring that back foot in while the racket is going up into the trophy phase, so that when they reach the trophy phase, that back foot is set and they can transfer all their body weight into the ball. That is an optimal pinpoint stance serve. Now, like I said before, this doesn't mean that Ivo Karlovic and a young junior Jannik Sinner were serving wrong. Not at all. They were still serving fundamentally correct, but it was just a very unique style with a very long backswing. So, as I'm watching and studying Sinner's serve over these last few years, there were some changes done to his serve. So, in 2021, this is where Sinner's pinpoint stance serve was the cleanest in my opinion, because here the sinking between his back foot and the take-up portion of the racket was the best. In other words, he was pretty close to pulling that back foot in as the racket was going up. It was still a little bit delayed, but there was more rhythm in his serve. But as I was watching him last night and last year, he kind of reverted back to pulling in that back foot as the racket is still in the bottom portion of his lag. As you probably know, Sinner also served with a platform stance for a while, and there, of course, you don't have to worry about the back foot. But I do think that since he served pinpoint in juniors, it probably feels the most natural to him. Another thing that Sinner has done to his serve is shorten the entire rhythm of his serve. So he doesn't take that prolonged pause in his lag. It's a more of a continuous lag, and it's also been shortened somewhat. But unfortunately, the current version of his serve, in my opinion, it doesn't look smooth, because when I just look at it and I'm just looking at the optics of it, I'm not studying the serve, and I compare it to some of the other great servers, it does look kind of weird, because he serves like this. Watch, he brings the foot in first and then he goes like that. I can't even do it, but it just looks a little bit off as I'm watching him. I wish that Sinner would time his serve a little bit more like he did in 2021 and get that back foot to accompany his take back, so he has a little bit more of that forward transfer to go into the ball. Because fact is that when you pull that back foot up early while the racket is still on the bottom, it defeats the purpose of a pinpoint stance serve. Now, if you want to get into the weeds of it, Sinner actually is already leaning a little bit in this phase. That's why I don't call this a mistake on the serve. So he still does get a lot of forward momentum, don't get it wrong. And Sinner still has an unbelievable serve. He gets a lot of first serves in. His first serve percentage is close to 60%, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with his serve. But if you're looking at pure optics of it and taking into account the changes that he has done on the serve, it would make more sense to delay the pulling in of the back foot and make it simultaneous with the take up. Here's the important thing, and I mentioned this when I made a video about Sabalenka's serve. Should Sinner try to do this during the Australian Open or in the middle of a season? Absolutely not, because millions of dollars are on the line and he's close to winning his first Grand Slam. So this is something that you experiment with in the off season, and maybe this feels absolutely horrible to Sinner to go like this. It's just not a rhythm that he's accustomed to. Like I said, he's been serving with this type of rhythm since he was in junior, so this is what feels comfortable to him. And even though this change makes more sense, theoretically speaking, it might not make his serve better. It might make it worse. So this is important for everybody to understand, that the serve, when we're talking about stylistic elements, is going to depend on each individual player. Every player needs to find their own style that feels the best to them. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I made several videos talking about the differences between platform and pinpoint, and as I already talked about in one of my previous videos during the Australian Open, Stefanos Tsitsipas has been experimenting with a pinpoint stance serve. And I can tell you that my research has shown that there might be an advantage to a pinpoint stance serve when it comes to power. It is a natural way to get more forward momentum into the serve when that back foot pulls in. When I look at WTA players, you're rarely, if ever, gonna see a platform stance. And that to me is evidence that when you see female servers who rely more on natural ways of getting power, they all use a pinpoint stance serve. If it's timed well, if it fits within the rhythm of a player, the pinpoint stance can give the player a little bit more power compared to the platform. Now here comes the complex thing. Let's take a player like myself who his whole life served platform. And if I start doing pinpoint, will I get more power or less power? What do you think? I'm gonna get a lot less power because I'm gonna make mistakes in my pinpoint stance serve. I'm not comfortable with that movement. I don't load my body the right way. I barely have any weight on that back foot, and the entire serve is off balance. So when I attempt pinpoint stance serves, I serve a lot slower and I make more mistakes. So when it comes to you guys, it is perfectly fine to experiment with platform and pinpoint and see which one feels best to you. If the pinpoint stance serve is one that feels better for you, now you got to get a lot of reps in and make sure that it's a fundamentally sound serve, and then it's gonna give you up to 5% more power compared to your platform stance serve.